Hey everyone, welcome to the Real Estate Game Changer Show. I'm your host, Mike McKay. For anyone here in the Jacksonville market, feel free to reach out to me if you need help on anything, whether you're just getting started, you're stuck on a deal, or even if you're looking for a buyer. We are actively looking to buy more properties here. Each Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, on this podcast, we will dive deep with guests from all over the country who are changing the game in real estate. Next week, we will be off because I'm going to a wedding, but every Friday after that, we will be here. And this is a live show, so please comment with your questions for our guests to answer. This week, our guest is Bryson Whitley, who specializes in foreclosure properties in San Antonio, Texas. He uses several unique strategies, which we'll get into today, to purchase foreclosure properties when other investors have failed to do so. And
Yeah.
through his deep knowledge of the foreclosure process, he's actually been able to stop properties from going to auction just minutes before they are supposed to go to auction to be sold. So Bryson, welcome to the show.
Hey man, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's going to be good, and I'm excited. So thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I guess let's get it started with how did you get started in the real estate business?
Yeah. So funny story. So I went to Texas State, which is in San Marcos, in between San Antonio and Austin, and
Hmm.
I was majoring in political science. Okay, so my senior year approached, and I was originally going to go to law school, but
Oh,
something was speaking to me to where I just had that change. I didn't want to go to law school anymore, and I was working jobs, and very difficult for me to, meet ends and pay bills and things like that. And at that point, I had an epiphany that told me that I don't ever want to have to work for somebody, and I want to find a way to build wealth. Okay, because at that time I was at Texas State, I hit rock bottom. Okay, so I ended up graduating and I got into a whole bunch of different stuff, right? I did some network marketing. It was for a company called Kayani. I helped a friend who had a clothing line. So I bought a bunch of backpacks, sold them at the school, threw a lot of live events. We did salsa dance and everything like that. And my roommate got an email on a real estate event that took place in Austin. So
hmm.
me, my brother, and our roommate was like, "Man, you know what? Let's just go to this event. Let's just check it out." It was a 3-day event, and so we went there, and it was at a hotel. And I never looked back after attending this event. Okay, because the guy got on the stage. His name was Cole Hatter or something, Fortune
Okay.
Builders, and he started talking about investing and what wholesaling can do and what real estate can, how real estate can change your life,
Hmm.
and also how it helps people. Okay, so when I went to that event, it just clicked, right? Because not only was I in the midst of finding ways to build wealth, but also it clicked with me because when I was 10 years old, my mom and dad got a divorce, and my they went their separate ways, and my dad wanted to hold on to the property for me and my brother. But as time went by, he just couldn't afford the payments and ended up losing our childhood home to auction. So with those things, me wanting to build wealth, and in my past, and then going to this event, it was a no brainer. So that's how we got started in the business.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you went to the event, the 3-day event,
Yep.
and you decided, okay, this is something I'm gonna do. What happened next after that?
Yeah. So we started an LLC. We said we had to do some research. Said, okay, we got to start a company, do an LLC. Now this was back in 2016.
Hmm.
Okay. So we started LLC. Fortune Builders gave us this binder, had all their systems and everything. Okay. Now, at that
Hmm.
time, we were really going to go into the Austin market. If you guys know anything about Austin market, that time was when it really started popping. Really competitive, prices were crazy. So
Hmm.
we were like, maybe it may not make sense. So we started looking at San Antonio. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, for the first year and a couple months, we didn't really take any action. Right. We had the analysis paralysis.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I tell you now that for many of you guys that are listening, whether maybe you're starting out, don't let that analysis paralysis is real, right? So we did a lot of studying. We're going through, stayed up late nights, doing all this stuff, but we never took action right away. Okay, so um, it wasn't until about mid 2017, maybe the beginning of 2017, we started driving to San Antonio every weekend, even during the weekdays. We started driving because we knew how to pull some lists, foreclosure lists, and other lists. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
start driving those properties and door knocking. Now we didn't know what to say, right?
Sure.
We didn't know
Yeah.
we didn't know any of that stuff, but we just did it.
Yeah.
And um, so we came across a property that was actually up for auction and chatted with the seller. Didn't even know where to make the offer,
Mm-hmm.
and but we made an offer,
Yep.
and seller liked it. Okay, so we got it on the contract, but we didn't know what to do next. So from
Yeah.
there, we at the same time there was this event that was thrown by this attorney who's also a real estate investor. So I went to this event along with my roommate, my brother, and we said, "Hey, we got a deal. We don't know what to do with it."
Okay.
And okay, so he was like, "Yeah, I'll check it out." He was like, "Set it up, let me get by and stuff like that." So we did that, and it was very interesting what happened next, right? So
Okay.
um, and I think maybe you'll get into our that was one. It was an embarrassing moment. I'll say I don't want to say embarrassing, but it was a awkward moment
Okay.
that happened. Um, but anyways, the deal ended up blowing up in our face. But the attorney partner real estate investor that came, he saw the hustle in us. He knew that we had hustle. He had mentor programs, charge money stuff. But because we brought that deal to him, he was like, "I'll tell you what, man, come work out of the office. You guys do
Mm-hmm.
your own market, find your own deals and stuff. But if you need any help, whatever, we'll basically partner JV 50-50."
Yep.
And that's basically that was our intro to building a successful real estate company.
Okay. So did you guys just have the property at too high of a price because you didn't know what to offer, or you said
Yeah,
it blew up?
well, not necessarily that. I went in the property and it was a younger lady, maybe in her mid 30s, maybe older
Okay.
30s.
Yeah.
Okay, so deal was good, but there was a day that we went by when our mentor went by. Her demeanor changed. Everything changed,
Mm.
and I noticed that there were some other people there. Okay, and now I wasn't paying attention at first, but our mentor pulled aside. He says, "Do you not see what's going on here? You're in a drug house." And I was like, "What do you mean? It was a drug house. This doesn't." Okay, so we were in a right. So the finds out the lady was on drugs. Okay, and she
Okay.
had her drug buddy there. She started doing all these crazy demands. She was like, "Well, you guys got to buy me a car, and I'm
Uh,
staying in the property, and right." So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
our men- our mentor said to him, and he's really like this. He said, "Walk away." He said, "Let's go." And at that point, we were new in our mind. We're like, "Well, shit, wait a second, because it's still a deal. Like, is there anything we can do?" So we're looking at the seller. He's like, "Let's go. Let's get out of here."
Yep.
And right, so as we started leaving, he was like, "Let's go sit down and have some breakfast." And we did that. He said that was a bad situation. That property was never going to work out. Okay, so he
Mm.
told us about there were some foundation problems there. We need to go down the price, and he said, "I've seen these too many times where maybe these type of sellers in these situations they want to be taken care of for the rest of their life." And he was like, "I just saved you guys from dealing with the headache."
Yeah.
And basically, again, that was when our mentor basically took us under his wings.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you meet him at that event, you bring him that deal, kicks off this relationship. And this is you and your brother at this point who are partners, or was there someone else?
Our roommate as well. So there's three of
Okay.
us.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you start working out of his office then, um, and then or out of the attorney's office,
Yep.
who's your mentor, and then where did things go from there?
Yeah. So from there, he started showing us ways. Right. He's like, "Here's how to pull. vacant list through code violations. Here's how to pull
Huh.
pre-foreclosure list, and he showed us how to also skip trace. Okay, one thing that always stuck with us was he told us this one thing I'll never forget. He said, if you become really good at becoming a stalker, he was being funny, but he was basically saying, you know how to find people, you will do really good in this business. And
Hmm.
he said, ask any of the women out here. He said the women should be pretty good at this because they're good at stalking. So he was being really funny about it. But that stuck with me because as I started going through, it started making sense, right? Because
Mhm.
you have a list of data, but then it was like, well, how do you get a hold of these people?
Yeah.
So I was the one that I was the one that was doing that part of the line of work. I was the one that was going in finding the information. We used been verified, and
Hmm.
I started paying attention to these little details and being able to connect the dots on maybe relatives, or maybe I know this person isn't here, maybe they died, but I was able to find this person through Facebook. So we
Hmm.
started getting some leads and we had some deals. Okay. Now we're probably 8 months in, no deals.
Okay.
At that
Wow.
time, we had about 3 deals that we had on a contract, but they blew up. Okay. There was liens, judgments,
Mm.
um, certain things just blew up the deal. They just didn't work out.
Yep.
Now at that point, we're all questioning, like, man, is this really, like, is this something we should go for? We're 8 months in, we haven't got a deal, right? You
Yeah.
start going through that self doubt, yeah, and you
Hmm.
start talking yourself out of things. So at that point, we sat down and said, look, we've already started. We know it works because we're seeing other people have success in this.
Yep.
So it was like, maybe we have to keep going. Maybe we need to change what we're doing. So we kept going, and we did some changes, but we did some similar things. Well, 2 months or maybe 3 months later, we ended up getting our first deal. Now it
Okay.
wasn't much, right? It was five thousand
Yeah.
dollars.
Yep.
Now at that time, that's a lot, right? It was like, oh my, like that changed our life, right? Because
Sure. Yeah.
um, because it doesn't matter. I want to throw this out there. It does not matter what you make on your first deal. I don't even care if you make $1,000 on your first deal, right?
Hmm.
It's very important what I'm going to share. What counts the most is getting your first deal is the momentum, because once you get that first deal, you like, you know what? I know this works.
Yep.
Now I know it works,
Yeah.
right? Now I
Proof
know
of
it
concept.
works.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then from there, what happens is momentum, the ball actually gets rolling. Okay. And then a
Hmm.
month and a half later, we got another deal. Because with our first deal, we took half of it, right? We paid ourselves, and the other half, we ended up getting a VA that for an admin that started doing the grunt work. And that's really how we started getting deals and getting the ball rolling from there.
So this is around like 2018, around this time, or
Yeah, 2018.
okay.
End of 2018. Um, End of 2018, beginning of 2019. Okay. In fact, now that I remember, our first deal actually was February 2019. That was our first deal.
Okay. So you were
February.
going.
I remember that.
So you were going deep into finding these people and really like stalking them and trying to get to the right person before that really became a thing. I mean, I feel like now it's become more of a thing with, REI Sift and people talking about deep prospecting, but you guys were doing that really before anyone was diving deep.
Because of our mentor, right? He was really good at what he does, but also because he was an attorney, he had certain software to where if he just runs address, it was giving accurate information. But he didn't want
Uh,
to give it to us at first because he wanted us to learn the ways and for us to go through the process, right?
yep.
But anytime we couldn't find somebody, then we'll go to him. He'd be like, he'll run it through, boom, right? And
Yeah.
I mean, software admin, it was just so accurate. And
Yeah. It's like
so yeah, we were
TLO
going
or something like that.
TLO. It was
Yeah.
TLO. Yep.
Yeah.
TLO. Really good
Wow.
software. So yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so 2019, February 2019, you get your first deal. You make 5,000 bucks. You reinvest half of it, in a
Yep.
VA. You've got proof of concept,
There you
and
go.
then and then from there you get another deal a month and a half after that, and
It was it
like,
was
did you make $1 million
April.
a year or
Almost right. Now the second one was a big deal. Okay, it was a big
was
deal.
it? Okay.
It was a tax foreclosure,
Okay.
and so this was April. Okay, and what happened was we were calling the guy, and I remember speaking to the guy. He had no plans, and now at first he told me he was like, "Well, I've talked to the bank and this and that." Well, we ignored it. We was like, okay, man, maybe you already figured it out and stuff. But
Yep.
there's a website that shows you if the tax foreclosure is still up.
Yep.
So I remember this like it was the back of my hand. It was on a Monday, okay, the day before auction because the auction was on Tuesday in Texas. Every Tuesday, every first Tuesday of the month is when foreclosure happens. Okay,
Okay. Yep.
so Monday at 7 o'clock. Now I remember I was chatting with my brother. So I was like, man, I don't know, should I go door knock? He's going back and forth, and he was like, man, you know what? Like, why not? He was like, why not?
Yep.
He's like, man, just go and see. And I was like,
Yep.
man, I don't know. It was like 7 o'clock, and so I was like, you know what? Let me go. So
Monday
I
night.
went
This is the night before the auction.
the night before. The
Okay.
night before, okay. And I drove 25 minutes across town, and I knocked on the door. Guy answered. He said, "Hey man, I was wanting to chat with you on the phone. I couldn't get a hold of you. It shows that you're probably still up for sale." I was like, "Man, what's going on?" And he said, "Man, I don't know what to do. I don't have any plans." And at that time, I was like, "Oh shit." Right, like, because at
Yeah.
that point we were still new, right? So I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit, okay. I wasn't expecting that, so I'm like, well, this thing's tomorrow. Like, what do we do? So I picked up the phone, I called our mentor,
Yep.
and he was like, okay. He was like, what address is this? What is it worth? Is this and that? He said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to bring the seller in tomorrow morning at 6 in the morning.
Okay.
Now, 6 in the morning for me, I'll be honest with you guys, right? I'm not a morning person. I'm more of a night owl. So 6 in the morning, I'm like, oh
Sure.
shit. Me at that, I was like, 6 in the morning, no problem.
No problem. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I said I will be there. I told the seller, I was like, hey, I'm going to come and pick you up. Okay.
Smart.
I told the seller I was going to come in. And by the way, at this time is when I actually moved to San Antonio. Now, my brother was still back at Texas State. And we went separate ways with our partner. So I get to the guy's house at 6 a.m. I was like, man, I hope he answers the door.
Yeah.
Hope he answers the door. He answers the door. He gets in the car. We go to our attorney's office. We do all the documents there. Got the guy an offer, and our attorney's like, "Hey, we have to go downtown quickly and pay these taxes." This is a really
So
funny
that's
story.
like
I really want to know this. Go
all
ahead.
those documents. That's like a purchase and sale agreement, or is there something special because
Right.
it was the
So,
same
yeah,
day?
so
Or
now same day, right? Because we did it.
yeah,
We had him sign a deed. We
sign the
told him, "Hey, we're
deed.
gonna
Okay.
go." Yep,
Yep.
sign a deed and then a sell agreement on what he'll
Okay.
make.
Yep.
But we couldn't do all that. We couldn't pay him out and do all that right away because we were running on
Sure.
short time because
Yep.
the auction was at 10 a.m. So my attorney partner says, okay, hey, we're going to go. He said, drop him off, meet me here. So I went downtown, dropped the guy off, met attorney at the bank. Okay. Now at the time, their process changed a little. So we had to drive 7 minutes somewhere else and get two checks. It used to be one check. We had to get two checks. So my mentor
Okay.
was like, get in the car. And it was like a freaking movie, okay? Because we were running short on time. At this point, it was like
Sure. Yeah.
9:20. Okay, so
Which,
we're going downtown, construction everywhere. He was like, hey, hang tight. So he makes a right, he ran 3 red lights. I'm like, shit, like this is like, but I'm with him on this. I'm like, hey, like, okay, maybe. So I pull up my GPS, like, hey, it says to go this way. So he turns right, ran red lights,
right?
rolled stop signs. I mean, we did everything. Hopped out of the car, left his door open in the middle of the street,
Yeah.
ran into the bank,
I
and
love it.
so we got the checks. He started running. Then we get to the tax assessor part of the count of downtown. Run up there. Now it's 9:53. He said, "Hey, I got the checks. I need you guys to stop the sale right now." He said, "I have the money right here. I need you guys to stop the sale." So the lady's like processing. She's like, okay. Let me send the email to this person. She's like, let me call. And that was 9:59. So I'm behind him. I'm like, oh shit. Like, is this? I don't
Sweat
know.
and bullets. Yeah.
Sweating bullets, right? This is a big deal, by the way.
Yeah.
This was a $50,000 deal or something. 60,000. This was a
Wow.
$60,000 deal.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh my god, right? So I'm seeing the $60,000. I'm like, man, this guy needs help, and so we get notification at 10 o'clock. She said, hey, it got pulled. We just pulled it. So my attorney's like, okay, let's go downtown. Let's go down there to the auction and let's make sure, right? So we sat there for 30 minutes and we didn't hear the property go.
Made sure it didn't
Boom.
actually go up. Yeah, that it
Make
was
sure
a
it
community.
actually didn't go for sale. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. Sounds like he did
60,000,
this a few times.
a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot of, because you understand when people are for auction, they're trying to figure out a lot of options.
Yeah.
Some people give up, right? Some people give up because they feel like there's just nothing they can do. Other individuals, they're trying to figure out some other options. They just run out of options last minute. So a
Yep.
lot of times, I'll probably say about 75, 80% of our deals that are with foreclosure are last minute. They're whether a couple days before auction or the day before auction or even the day of auction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So you get that deal, right?
Yep.
Everything goes through.
Yep.
Um, and then how did that work? I mean, so you guys pay the taxes, but I mean, you had no title search on that, right? I mean, that was just kind of a
He
gamble,
did it.
or
So
he
he
did
so
it.
he did
Okay.
right. So he ran a title search, looked at everything the night
Wow.
before.
Okay.
Okay, so he was looking for lien judgments, and we learned how to do almost a thorough title search, just like a title company would through him. Right. This
Yep.
was the biggest blessing we had because having an attorney partner is also a real estate investor. Not only do you learn the real estate investing side, but you also learn the attorney side. So that
Yeah.
really gave us an advantage of things. So he ran the title work, and title was clear. So once we paid the taxes, the next step was because we still had to wholesale the deal. We knew what we can wholesale it at, but we didn't make the
Yep.
6K right there. That was
Yep.
just the
Of course.
beginning. So got with the guy, figured out where he needed to relocate, and we started looking for apartments, but also helped him with moving because that's a big hassle for a lot of individuals that for auctioning. So we found that
Sure.
that's a big pain point. So we offer that. We got the investor buy that was really interested. Now our attorney he has a huge network, so he could sell a deal like he just puts it on his Facebook.
Yeah.
All these freaking investors reach out because they know it's a good deal, right?
Yeah.
We had one particular that reached out. I was like, "Hey, I got cash. I'm ready now. I want to buy this." Got by. She said, "I'll buy this." It was a female. She bought the deal and quick closing, right? Because it's cash. They don't want title insurance and none of that stuff. So all the closing happens at the title office at the attorney firm.
Okay. They don't want title
So
insurance.
they don't want title insurance because they're cash buyers, right? Some cash buyers do. It just depends on the buyer.
Yeah.
But a lot of his cash buyers doesn't care about that.
Yeah. Because he's doing all the
So
title work, I guess. Yeah.
he's doing all the title work and everything, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so we helped him move, close on the property, $60,000, JV split, man, 50-50.
Wow.
We put no money up, by the way. So,
Right.
I know a lot of people that get started and they want to try and do everything themselves and want to try and make 100% of something. But I think the better approach is JV. Like, if you guys come across a deal, like, go to Mike. It's better to JV with somebody and make a
Yeah.
little bit of money because they're going to help you get through that deal and make the money versus trying to do it yourself, because then there's a good chance that something's going to fall apart. You're not going to get it. And
Yeah.
we learned that early on, and we understood that.
Yeah. I mean, I JV'd probably my first 20 deals that I did in Jacksonville because I mean, I
Yeah,
had done a lot of real estate before, but not in Florida. I didn't know how all the
right,
processes worked. I didn't know all the buyers. I didn't know how to price stuff, in the
yeah,
beginning when I got down here. I think it's super valuable to
right,
JV with someone.
yeah, absolutely.
So from that point, um, did you guys decide at that point that the auctions were your thing, or were you still kind of playing around in
Yeah,
different?
so that's a good. I appreciate you asking that. Right, so we started dipping more in co-violation vacant properties.
Okay.
Um, we'll start reaching out to because we find out a lot of times when properties are vacant, especially for so long, there's definitely some problems going on. Maybe somebody passed away, so you got to do a little bit more deep prospecting. In other
Hmm.
words, trying to find family members and things like that. So we were doing that stuff, but at the time, tax foreclosure was just our thing because the
Yeah.
next month we had a deal that nobody could find the guy. Well, I was able to find the brother. Okay, this is
Right.
another big deal. Found the brother, And the brother's like, yeah, man, I haven't really been chatting with my brother. He has some mental problems, and this and that. But he was like, man, let me reach out to him because I told him what was going on. So
Yeah.
the brother basically helped us get this deal to the finish line.
Okay.
Okay, this is the tax foreclosure up for auction. We made them offer. The seller, the actual owner, had his son living in the property, so that was another big deal. That was like a $50,000-$60,000 deal.
Hmm.
So we're like, man, like these are really good deals, right? We're able to help
Yeah.
individuals because tax foreclosure, a lot of times there is no mortgage on them, right?
Sure.
There's no
Yeah.
mortgage. A lot of times, which is why they fall behind on taxes, right? Think about it, because the mortgage company's not going to let a property fall behind on taxes.
Right. Right.
Because now, at least here in Texas, if there's taxes owed, it supersedes over the mortgage, even if the mortgage is first lien,
Yep.
right?
Same here. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that was our third deal, which is another 6K. So we started really focusing in on foreclosures and moving on, and we got more tax foreclosures, but also pre foreclosures that or mortgage foreclosures.
Gotcha. And are you doing any mass marketing at this point, or you're just getting really targeted and digging deep on the people who you think made the most sense to that, you could help the most and who, there's kind of the bigger deals?
So we do both, right? So we do mass marketing because we have cold callers, and we do SMS and RVMs. Okay, so we send all those out in bulk, and as you know, Mike, we do basically the process where we hit them several times, we start rinsing them, and we get to the really good leads.
Yep.
But also, we're spending it's kind of that 80-20 rule. So we're spending a lot of our time on foreclosures.
Okay.
Um, we get deals from mass marketing, things like that, but we know every single month we know that we can get foreclosed properties every
Yeah.
single month.
Yep.
At least for 3 to 5, right? That's minimum
Yeah.
every single month. And those tend to be the bigger deals. So that's where we
Hmm.
spend majority of our time.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of bulk marketing.
And then now, from what I understand, and I don't know Texas that well, it's you get foreclosed on pretty quick in
Yeah,
Texas if you
yeah.
don't pay your mortgage. Like, what are the time? Because in Florida it takes forever, right? Well, I mean, what are the time frames if someone is not paying their mortgage in Texas to, maybe getting that delinquent notice to, hey, we're going to auction.
Yeah. So let's say you miss 3 payments. Okay. What happens is the banks get an attorney, and the attorney files what's called a notice of default, an NOD. Okay.
Okay.
Once the NOD is filed, the owner has 21 days to bring that debt current. Okay. If they don't bring the debt current, the attorney then goes file what's called the notice of trustees of sale. In other words, it's a notice of foreclosure. On that notice of foreclosure, it posts the auction date, the time and place where it'll be, which property, and things like that. From there, there's another 21 days, okay,
Okay.
that they have until the auction date. So from there, and after that, once the notice of foreclosure is posted, the bank has the right not to accept payments. Okay, now the bigger banks, they will take payments, but we
Hmm.
find is like private investors, they won't accept the payments. Even if the owner has the money, let's say they fell behind 20,000, they want to go and pay that. I find the smaller investors, they don't want the payment. They want to foreclose, right? Probably because there's equity, whatever the case is. But that's usually the
Uh,
process. Yeah, it's really fast in Texas, super fast.
so that's 32 days basically from, sorry, 42 days from the day they get the notice of default
Exactly,
to the day of
42 days.
auction.
Yeah. Now there, it could be, it could be more than that. It just depends on how it falls. But the way we look at it is, if auction is October 4th, you count 21 days back. Okay, so
Okay.
September 13th was the last day for anybody to file for an October foreclosure. I know that because I
Right.
went downtown on the day because we have a property. We're doing something on it, something super creative.
Yep.
So, but we had to post the auction on it. So you have 21 days. So if you count 21 days back from the auction date, that's the last day that you can file notice of foreclosure if you want it to be on October 4th, for
Yep.
example. Yeah, really fast.
And then,
Texas is super fast, super fast.
and so you said the bank or the lender has the right not to accept payments. So at that point, does that mean the only way to do it is to pay the mortgage off totally? You can't catch up at that point, or they have the option to not let you catch up?
And so they have the option, right? So, like I said, a lot of the bigger banks, they're okay. They're going to take the money, right? Though, if you fell
Yeah.
behind 20, you can reinstate it the day before.
Yep.
It's more the smaller or it's the private investor. Like maybe if an investor's doing an owner finance, like for example, we own a bunch of owner finance properties, and even in our deed of trust, it states the same thing, right? So
Yep.
we're working on one now. Property's worth probably like $400,000. Guy
Okay.
owner finance, okay. Dude has the money; he can reinstate it, but they won't take it anymore. They don't want to take the. He fell behind like 50,000 or something dollars. Okay, so he has the
Okay.
money, but they won't accept it. So the only
Yep.
thing he can do is pay off the entire balance, which is like 215, or sell it
Wow. Right.
to pay it.
In
Right?
those
Those are
21
the
days. Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And
So
so you started getting in. So this is like what, 2019-ish, 20 late 2018. No, this is end of 2019 when you kind of started
right.
these
So
other things.
February 2019 was our first deal. Then April we got our second. Um, May we got our third, and then we just
Okay.
started rolling ever since then. I mean, these were just big deals just coming in,
Yeah.
and all of them were foreclosures or tax foreclosures. That's what they
Okay.
were.
Yeah.
So I think I don't know. It was just the way like the universe fell, right? Remember with our past, with our parents splitting up, dad lost our childhood home to
Hmm.
auction. It was almost like it was it was we were destined to kind of go more towards that.
Sure.
Maybe because we have a little bit more empathy for these situations.
Yeah.
I don't know. Man, I think it has something to do with that. So, and also we have the ability to help, but it's also it's really good. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you can make excellent money
Yep.
with foreclosure. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's really good. So
So you yeah, so you started, focusing real heavy on the foreclosures. And then um what, you mentioned this process of kind of going through the leads, and I know you have like a really defined process, especially as the auction gets closer, of like additional steps you take to make sure you're reaching, first of all, people who have the ability to sell, right? They have
yeah,
equity. There's not, liens or judgments that are going to totally screw it up. And so, can you walk us through kind of like what that process looks like, so that you're able to reach
yeah,
these people that other, or even get deals done that other investors can't?
yep. So what I'll do is walk you through what we used to do and why it was we were wasting a lot of time, which will lead
Okay.
to why our process is really good. So what we used to do is we'll get the numbers call and maybe they never answer or whatever the case is. So what happens
Yep.
is we'll start building up a list to go and door knock. Problem is
Okay.
that we had a long list, we just went and door knocks, right? Now our attorney partner, mentor, one thing that he always did shows that he always looks at the information before wasting any time. So we would always go in and look at when was the deed pulled out, um, is this a good property? Is there enough equity? Things like this. So we would do that before. But what happened is we still after that we had no process, right? So we would just go and door knock on a bunch of doors. You'd be like, "Oh, already took care of it," or we work with somebody, all this and that. So we were wasting a lot of time.
Yeah.
So over the years, we started building, or over the year, we started building a very refined process. Okay.
Okay.
Now at this time we have a private investigator on our team. Right now,
Okay.
she has the top of the line systems, can find almost anybody. So what we do is have our admin go in and pull the list.
Okay.
And now back then we didn't. We used to we wanted to make sure there was equity, but now we don't care, right? If there's no equity in property, we want to make sure that it's at least 1980 or up because if there's no equity, we know that we're going to be doing some sub to owner finance. Okay.
Okay.
Back then we were doing that, right? We were only doing deals that had equity.
Sure.
So now we have more records. Admin
Mhm.
goes in, pulls the list, cleans out, weeds out any ones that don't fit our criteria. Okay, so from there, she sends the list to our private investigator. Our private investigator gets all the information, and then we run it through our CRM system. And originally, it was me and my partner were making calls. We were basically
Yep.
going through all the phone numbers to get to the right person. But that was something to hire out, right? Because
Yeah.
that wasn't the best use of time. So we hired
Uh-huh.
that out, and then our cold callers start going through down all these numbers, right? And what happens is she'll get the correct number. Her approach was, "Hey, we want to buy your property." We didn't care what the answer was, right? Fuck you, leave us
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't care, right? Because our approach is not, "Hey, we want to buy your property." So we just needed the correct number. So once our cold caller gets the correct number, she'll then push it over
Mhm.
to our acquisition side, and then that's when we
Okay.
come in. Okay.
And how long
And
how long is this how long is this like before the auction? Like at what point is this when you're sending it over to your private investigator and or having your admin clean it and then sending it to the private investigator? Like how far in advance of the auction is that?
Yeah. So we pull what's called pre foreclosures and then pre foreclosures. Okay. So if you
Okay.
remember when I was talking about how when they send out a notice of default, okay,
Yep.
that is a pre foreclosure because that means the trustee is moving. There's an appointment. It's called appointment trustee. That means they're moving it towards foreclosure.
Okay.
So we started pulling that, but also the notice of foreclosures.
Which is
Okay.
the 21
Now,
days before the auction.
21 days
Okay.
before the auction. Okay.
Okay.
Now, we found that a lot of times, and especially in the pre foreclosures, they ain't looking to sell, right? They're just not.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
a lot of times, the majority of people in the auction, they want to hold on to their house, right? And if you understand that inside, you would not go in pitching you want to buy their house. I just shared some gems right there. Because in
Say
the
it
beginning,
again. Yeah.
yeah. So again, a lot of times, guys, people that are up, their house is up for auction. You have to really put yourself in a situation. They really don't want to sell the property. They're trying to figure out how can I keep this house
Mhm.
because they want to live in there, right? Maybe a lot of times this situation happened outside of their, outside of their control, or maybe it was their fault, whatever the case is. But a lot of times they do not want to sell.
Yeah.
So the purpose of the pre foreclosure was just we start introducing ourselves for getting the information ahead of time. Uh,
Okay. So
right. So
walk me through that approach. Like I'm a seller, right? Or not a seller actually. I'm on a pre foreclosure. How are you approaching me in that way that you're not saying, "Hey, you want to sell the house? I saw, it's going to be auction, so you might as well sell it." What's your approach instead of the
yeah.
standard investor
Yeah.
approach?
Well, this is a script there. This script really works. Okay. So
Okay.
hey, Mike. My name is Bryson. I'm pretty sure you've been getting bombarded with a bunch of calls from people that want to buy your property. I'm calling you to see what your plans are on taking care of everything with your property before the auction date on October 4th. That's my approach. Okay, because now they're number one is I just called out what's really been. I know for a fact they've been getting bombarded with calls.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
right, so the fact that I
Okay.
just called it out caught them off guard.
Mhm.
Now they're listening,
Mhm.
right? Because before they used to just hang up. A lot of times they hang up because really think, and you have to really again put yourself in their shoes. Like you're getting a bunch of calls, letters, people knocking on the door, and maybe they're at work, and you know what I'm saying. So they're in a situation where they're not only having to deal with what's their situation with the property, but people reaching out. So
Mhm.
it's really being empathetic about the situation. So when I say that, they're more likely to listen.
Yeah.
So they say, well, I'm working on doing this, or yeah, this is what happened, and so we don't say, well, hey, we buy properties and all this. What we say is, hey, got it. Look, so majority of the people that we chat with, we specialize in properties up for auction. The majority of the people that we chat with are not looking to sell. All right, so we say
Mm.
outside of us buying properties, right? Because we do throw that in there. We want them to know we buy properties.
Sure.
So we say
Yep.
outside of us buying properties, we shed insight and provide strategies to homeowners on ways to keep their house. That's what we say. They're like, oh,
Okay.
really? Okay, so then we start taking them down options, right? There's a couple options when in foreclosure. Number one is they pay the debt, right?
Yep.
They reinstate the loan. Number two is they can do what's called a loan modification.
Uh-huh.
Okay, banks basically modify their interest rates. Depending on how that works, a lot of people don't know this. The goal is loan modification is supposed to lower your payments, but sometimes actually it goes up. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Um, another option is that they do bankruptcy, Chapter 13.
Yep.
If they do that, it automatically stops the sale, right?
Yep.
Um, bad thing is it lands on their record. Sometimes it makes sense though. Maybe they are in a situation they got back on their feet, they found a better job, whatever the case is. Like COVID, you'll see that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, bankruptcy, forbearance, which obviously during COVID time, they were doing this left and right. I mean, if you look at the statistics, they were doing so many forbearances. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep. So that was another option. Those are really pretty much the main options: loan modification, bankruptcy, reinstate the loan, sell the property. That's it. So we say, hey, look, have you spoke to the bank? That's our first thing. Hey, have you chatted with the bank? You'll be surprised how many of them say, no, I haven't chatted with them. They haven't even spoke to the
Yep.
bank,
Yep.
right? So, so what we say is, okay, look, the most important thing is communicating with the bank. You have to communicate on what the situation is, right? So I'll say, man, and at this point is when I share them our story because now we're building connection. I say, hey, let me share this quick story with you so that you understand why I'm on this phone with you. So I tell them exactly what I told you guys on how we lost our childhood home to auction. Boom, right? Guards come down. Now they're
Yep.
definitely all ears. They're
Yep.
listening because we just got this connection.
Yep.
So I say, hey, what's your story? Because I want to figure out what's their situation so that I can best guide them, right? Because if it's a
Yep.
long term, if it's a situation to where it's going to be an ongoing thing, um, some of these options doesn't make sense for them, right? So
Yep.
that's why I want to figure
Sure.
that
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
right? So from there, we take down the process and we say, hey, this is what I want you to do. I want you to reach out to the bank. We already know who the bank is. We give them the information because again,
Mhm.
we have our admin. Once everything's in our CRM, she goes and does a title search. Okay, so we taught her how to do that. So we already know if there's liens or judgments and everything on the property. But
Mm.
also, if you notice a foreclosure, it shares with us who is the attorney firm that is representing the bank. Okay, because
Mhm.
sometimes sellers or homeowners they have trouble in getting a payoff or reinstatement from the bank.
Yeah.
Some banks play weird
Yep.
games. Okay,
Yep.
so what we do is we always tell them like, hey, you need to order these two documents so that you know exactly what's owed down to the pennies.
Mhm.
Also, you need to share with them what's going on to see if there's any options. So we provide them not only the bank but also the attorney firm representing the bank.
Mhm.
Okay, because they give them attorney firms are a lot easier to deal with, and they'll get
Yeah.
that information quickly, right?
Yeah.
And that was
They answer the
gold.
phone. Yeah.
Gold.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Um,
then, so you ask them their story and kind of share their options with them.
yep.
If they want to stay in the home, what happens usually at that point over the next coming weeks?
It's follow up game there, right?
Okay.
So a lot of us. So I remember when we first got started, we just wanted to deal, move on to the next one. We couldn't get it right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
What I found is 80% of sales happen in the fifth to eighth follow up,
Yep.
right? So it's really following up from there. So the next follow up, they'd be like, hey, did you get the chance to chat with the bank? Right? Anything? Were you able to get in touch with the attorney firm? So they're like, yeah. So I spoke to the bank, and we say, okay, maybe whatever, depending on what option we chatted with them about. We say, okay, the loan modification process is you got to put in the paperwork now. So have you chatted with them about that? Are they open to doing that? So you can start to see that we're coming in not as a real estate investor, we're coming in as a problem solver because that's at the end
Yep.
of the day, that's what this whole business is.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what lead, we're solving problems, right? If there's somebody that needs to sell a house, a lot of time has nothing to do with the house. They're selling it
Mhm.
for a reason.
Yep.
So as we're providing these options, we're following up and we're giving insight. We're saying, hey, uh, instead of chatting with the first person on the phone, go up higher. Talk to a manager or somebody. You'd be
Mm,
surprised how many people we helped when they just did that, because they were like, "Man, this is crazy. Like, I've been calling them for weeks and I've never been able to get in touch, and they always give me a runaround, and I was able to finally get in touch with an account manager and this, and like, oh my god, like it's crazy." And,
wow.
right?
Yeah.
Over time, we really honed in on the process on how this shit
Yeah.
works, right?
Yeah.
Um, so it's really providing that insight, and I'll share this real quick. So a lot of homeowners in auction, they tell us a lot of times they're like, man, you guys are like, you'd be surprised what I have investors knocking on my door say, well, you need to sell me your property. Your house is going to auction. If that is you out there, okay, listen to what I'm about to share with you. If you're saying anything between the lines, you need to sell, you need to do this, sell me your house, you're fighting a losing battle. You will never get a property that way,
Yeah.
because you have to really and this is where empathy is so crucial. You really have to take yourself out of your own shoes and put yourself in the shoes and say, how would I feel in this situation? So a lot of these homeowners say the same thing. A lot of people approach them, say, I want to buy your property. You need to sell me your property. Your house is going to auction, this and that. A lot of people are rude. We hear this all the time. So the fact that we come in with a different approach, we already have our upper hand.
Yeah. Yeah, you're coming in as a trusted advisor where everyone else is coming in as a transactional, hey, I'm just only interested in buying your property. I don't really care about your situation. And that
That was
really
well said.
resonates.
Well said. Exactly. 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 Yep.
So, some people obviously are able to solve this with one of the options that you mentioned, right? And some
Yep.
aren't, right? It just
Yep.
doesn't work for them. It gets closer to the date. Maybe at some point they come to the realization they have to sell, but you're pretty close to the auction date by that point. I mean, by
Right.
the time people have exhausted their options. So could you talk more about what the process looks at that point in your business?
Yeah. Yep. So if you guys remember, in the beginning, a lot of people, they're not looking to sell, right? So some people we actually help, right? We give them insight, and it actually works, and we're okay with that, right? Because here's the thing too. Um, there's what's called a wealthy mindset and a scarcity mindset. Okay.
Yep.
So a scarcity mindset is not really certain information, because maybe you don't want to see that person win, or maybe really just you're looking out really only for your best interest. But the wealthy mindset is like, there's so many deals out there. I don't care if we help them out. Like if they want to really keep the house and then there's an option out there that's better for them, we're going to tell them. We don't care,
Yeah.
right? And that
Yeah.
happens. There's what happens, right? They actually get the loan amount approved. They're finally able to get a hold of with attorney, or maybe they
Yeah.
had the money, they stayed, and all this stuff. So we help those people. But the individuals that they can't figure out the options throughout, guess who's the first person they're going to call or chat with,
Hmm.
or who they're more likely going to work with,
Yeah.
right? So when that time comes where there's that little bit of time, we say, hey, look, here's what we can do. You have those two options, because you can do a bankruptcy all the way up to the day of, right? You can
Sure.
file a
Yeah.
bankruptcy, will completely stop it. So we say, hey, look, here's your two options. You either file bankruptcy. Okay, here's the pros. I always tell the pros first, right? I don't want to go to the negatives first, because you're just
Yep.
saying that. Here's the pros first. Hey, tell the pros, right? It's going to stop
Yep.
it. Creditors can't come after you, this and that and that. But here's the downside: it's going to be on your record for 7 years, right?
Yep.
It's $30 trillion worth of cash, or credit, but there's only like $9 trillion worth of cash. If you think about that, if you ever see yourself buying, right? How did you buy this house? So I'll start walking through that to eliminate bankruptcy. So I'll
Yep.
say, here's what we can do. We can buy your property for cash. Well, and if it's last minute, let's say it's 2 days before, we're
Hmm.
not buying it, right? We're gonna have to stop it. So we go
Yeah.
downtown, have our attorney go downtown and file what's called a TRO.
Okay.
Now, this process, guys, keep in mind this is in Texas. So if you're in other states, Florida, maybe you have to make sure you have to do your own due diligence.
Yep.
Um,
Can't do it in
so in
Florida.
Texas, yeah, yeah,
TROs don't work. Yeah.
yeah. Exactly. So we have our attorney go down and file TRO. That automatically stops it, right?
Okay.
I mean, it stops it, buys its time, 60, 90
Go-
days.
Oh, that
Um,
long. Okay. Wow.
yeah. Now, if it's for example, we have a property now, the one I was telling you earlier. that the guy owner financed it. Okay, they already refiled for October. Now we're about to wire that thing cash because this thing was originally up for
Yeah.
September. We had to do
Okay.
a TRL, stopped it. But smaller investors, they're more aggressive. They're going to go and refile that thing right away. That's
Yep.
exactly what happened. We just need to buy some time.
Yep.
But the big guys, they don't care, right? We got one where a guy,
Yeah.
he's lied to us. He called us on a Monday at 2:30, and we took the deal on. It was a little bit of risk, but we found out he lied. Payoff came in $60,000 higher and stuff. They just now foreclosed on him. This is 9 months later, right after we filed the
Yeah.
TRO. So
Wow.
it bought him a lot of time.
Yeah.
So at that point, we say, hey, this is what we can offer. We'll allow you 30, 60 days in the home. And,
Mhm.
we're going to go downtown. We'll put a stop to this. That's pretty much at that point. That's what we offer, and depending on if there is no equity, then we're doing a sub two on the finance.
Okay.
If there is equity, then we're doing wholesale, whatever other strategy we want to utilize.
Gotcha. And guys, remember this is a live show. We got a lot of people on here. If you have questions for Bryson about this process, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll make sure they get asked. So for those ones with no equity in it, and you're doing a sub two, can you walk
Mhm.
me through how that works a little bit? I mean, I'm not as much of a sub two guy, but I mean, they've obviously got delinquent payments. I mean, do you have to settle up on those, or like, how does that process work with someone who's delinquent?
Yeah. So that's a great question, right? Because that's gonna help maybe some viewers. Um, so before we used to throw these leads away, right? And
Hmm.
we found out we were making a huge mistake because there's only a small population or competition in this field. So
Okay.
what happens is, let's say that a property. I'm gonna keep it simple. Let's say that a property is worth $100,000. Okay, and maybe they fell behind 20,000.
Hmm.
Um, but maybe they just bought the property, right? So maybe they bought the property, I don't know, 2 years ago, whatever, and maybe they owe $70,000, fell behind 20,000. What
Yeah.
can they do at that point, right? Because they owe 70,000, but also they fell behind 20,000, so they're basically like $90,000. They
Yeah.
cannot take that to a traditional. No investor can do anything with it. No realtor can do anything with it.
Yep.
So what we do is we do what's called subject to. We take the loan subject to,
Hmm.
and we tell them, hey, here's what we could do. We're gonna make your loan payments on your behalf. We're gonna bring your loan current,
Okay.
and then this just to throw this out there, okay? My brother is the one that really got us into this. I got to throw this out there.
Okay.
He's the numbers guy. Let me throw this out there really quick. He is the numbers guy. Okay, and he
Hmm.
pushed. I mean, he can structure deals, and he's been telling us getting into this for a very long time. And I'm like,
Yep.
no, like this. He's been big on owner finance, so he's the one that really. I mean, yeah, he puts all the deals and all that stuff. So I just do the sales and negotiation. So
Okay.
you say, hey, we're gonna bring your loan current and make your payments on your behalf. That's the way we word it.
Uh-huh.
So from there, we say we keep your loan under your name for the life of the loan, right? So let's say they have 28 years left.
Yep.
We say we got to keep the loan in your name for the remaining life of the loan, but we're going to continue to make payments.
Yep.
Now some of you guys may be like, wait a second. So and we get the deed, by the way. Texas is a deed state, so whoever has the deed owns the property. So we do get the
Yep.
deed because we're not going to pay $20,000 without a deed.
Yeah.
So now you may be saying like, wait a second. Like, why would a seller deed a property over to you and keep the loan in their name?
Hmm.
Well, because there's only two options. They either let it go to auction and it's on the record for 7 years plus. It's going to ruin their credit. It's going to be very
Yeah.
difficult for the next 7 years to make anything happen. Or they have this route, right, where we bring that loan current, we take over the loan payments, and we put some money in their pocket. What happens
Yep.
is when we start making the payments, it actually builds their credit back up.
Yeah. Yep.
So, so, that's the front side. So a lot of times, this is what I love so much about it. For example, we had one that I think there was an interest rate of like 2.8% or something. Very cheap
Yeah.
payments. Property's
Yep.
probably worth like three something, but the payments are so cheap, right? You can go buy a $200,000 house right now, and your payments will be more than this one, right? So
Mhm.
that's the
Yeah.
first thing. So once we do that, we get the deed to our name, and we create what's called a deed of trust, the same way the bank did with them. The
Yep.
bank created a deed of trust with the homeowner. Homeowner got the
Okay.
deed. In that deed of trust is basically like a promissory note that the homeowner is going to pay back the loan. What
Okay.
happens if they? Well, we all know what we're discussing right now:
Yeah.
foreclosure.
Yep.
Same thing with us. So the way we protect the individual on
Mm.
the underlying loan is we create a deed of trust with them and say, hey, if we ever miss out on any payments or whatever, you actually have the right to foreclose on us and take the
Yep.
property back. Here's why you would actually want this to happen, even if it's years later. If the property needs work, we're going to go put in some work to the property. And let's say let's say we stop making payments 4 years later. Well, guess what? We just paid down your loan. We put
Yeah.
money into your property, and your property value went up. Now you're actually gonna have equity to sell. They're like,
Yep.
oh shit. I had
Yeah.
one guy who was like, oh man, so I'm gonna be banking on you guys foreclosing. I was like, yo, we're not
Be the best thing that could
30,000.
happen to me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the front side. So you say, okay, well, what are you gonna do with it then? So we basically do what's called a sub two wrap. So
Okay.
guys, there is a market out there of individuals who are maybe cash heavy, they make really good money, but they cannot go to the bank and get a traditional loan. Entrepreneurs. Maybe they're in construction business. I'm in San Antonio, so we have um, Hispanic population. A lot of them don't believe in banks, right? So they're heavy on cash or whatever. Maybe they don't have credit or whatever the situation is. So what we do is we turn around and we collect our spreads on interest rates. Okay, so guys
Hmm.
on owner finance buyers, they are more than happy to pay an 8% interest rate. That is everything to them because they
Yep.
want a house, but they can't go to the bank.
Yep.
So we are solving problems there, right? So
Yep.
we turn around. So let's say we have a 2.8% on that. By the way, when we reinstate it, that's 20,000. The underlying mortgage is what the interest rate is on, which is the 70,000. So
Yep.
we have let's say there's 2.8% on a $70,000 underlying loan.
Yep.
Well, what we're going to do is we turn around and resell it. Maybe the ARV is 100, so we can actually sell the property a little bit higher. Again,
Mm.
we stay within Dodd-Frank Act. There's certain laws and rules and regulations, especially after '08, which is that's when Dodd-Frank was created after
Yeah.
after that crash. So we turn around and say, okay, we're going to resell it at 110 with an 8% interest rate. So
Hmm.
what happens is, and also they put down a down payment, guys. So anywhere from 10 to 15%. So if we're
So.
selling it at, let's say we sell it at 120,
Yep.
and or I'll say 110, and they put 10% down. Okay,
Yep.
well that means they put $10,000 down. That $10,000 we get to keep.
Hmm.
Okay. Or I'll say one. Let me say 120 because I told you it was 20,000. So we're out 20, right? So we sell
Yeah.
it
So
at
in that,
120.
just to back you up there, in that original transaction, you did have to pay the 20,000 off to there be
Exactly,
some
right?
tax.
Because that's the
So
way to
you
take it
took
out of
cash.
our
You took cash and
exactly,
did that. Okay. Yep.
exactly. So we'll bring that loan current,
Yep.
right? And from there, what we do is we turn around and resell it. Maybe we get $20,000 down payment. Boom. Now we're no money out, right? So now we had somewhere we made 40,000. We had no money in it. We made $40,000.
Yeah.
So that's like a wholesale fee. So you get to pocket that. But not only do you
Right.
pocket that, so you also make cash flow every single month for the next 30 years because we turn around and create a 30-year note with the owner finance buyer. So even if the
At a
underlying
higher
lien
interest
is
rate.
30 years at a
Yeah.
higher interest rate.
Yeah.
So maybe you have $1,200 payments here on the underlying. Maybe the payments here are $1,800. Guess what? For the next 30 years, you're making $600 every single month for
Yep.
the next 30 years. Um, if they stop making payments, we create a deed of trust with them. We foreclose on them. Wash, rinse,
Yep.
repeat. And the same thing, we actually benefit more because guess what? We got to take the down payment, pocket or whatever. If we got a foreclose, we go find somebody else. Probably by that time, property value went up. more equity. By the way, there is back end equity on this, but I don't want to, I
Yeah.
don't want to complicate things. So yeah,
Sure. Yeah. So, um, so yeah, you put in that cash to get it current, take it over subject to you.
yep.
Your goal is to at least make your money back, and maybe more with the down payment you get from your end buyer, so you're not stuck with constantly putting 20 grand out and not having it.
Well,
Uh,
so let me share this since you touched on it, right? So that
yeah.
was actually our original model. So now
Okay.
we're partnered with another attorney investor who's been doing this for like 35 years. I don't know what it is but I don't know, we're
You
like we
guys love
attract,
attorneys.
right? Like, but this dude's a freaking genius. He's like a godfather of owner finance, okay?
Uh-huh.
Based out of Dallas. And Scott Horn's name. So we partner up with him. And what we actually started doing in the past year, we actually take on properties to where maybe we're sitting now a year, or even we have 3 properties where we won't make any money for the next year or two.
Okay.
Okay, where you're like, wait, why would you do that, right?
Yeah.
Because so one, we're not even using our money to do that. Number two, these are great deals, right? Because nobody else would have been able to do anything. So why
Okay.
leave money on the table when you can still do something? So we have some properties that they may pay, 1,000 to 1,500 in cash flow when that next year or two is up, and then we probably have 80,000. Like one of them, we have like $80,000 in equity,
Okay.
right? So
Yeah.
we're okay with it having being 20,000 out, because what we'll do is take that cash flow
Uh-huh.
and we'll apply it to the money that we're out. That's how we figure
Yeah.
out how long will it take for us for this cash flow to make our money back.
Yeah.
And he's so smart that we learned from him is really wealth building. You really understand is we'll even take some of our cash flow from other properties that we have. Maybe they start cash flow right away,
Yeah.
and applying it to the one that maybe we're sitting out to knock it down even faster.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you're really building wealth faster. So
So
right now, I think.
si-
uh
why would that situation happen where you're not able to get your money back from the your end buyer, right? Your owner finance buyer.
Yeah.
How does
Thank
that
you.
occur?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had a property where there were solar panels on there. Okay. Property was built in 2019 or something like that. There was no
Yep.
freaking equity, right?
Yep.
$40,000 reinstatement. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
And then we have a realtor that sells it. She sells all of her own finance deals. She's the best. I mean, she's
Okay.
crazy with this. She sells them. So we have to say 40,000, and maybe the house is worth X amount. So maybe we only get $35,000 down. So
Okay.
we're out, right? So we have 40,000 reinstatement, 35 down payment, and then we have realtor fees costs. Maybe that's 7,000.
Yep.
We use hedge fund money, insurance money, right, to pay any of that money that's out. So we have carrying costs, 8% interest monthly, right? So
Oh, on
maybe
that
after
differential. Okay.
what is it?
On that differential, right, between the 35
Exactly.
and whatever you guys are. Okay. Gotcha.
Exactly. Even the reinstatement, right? We'll go borrow that money, and so we don't use our own cash, right? So
Yep.
so maybe all in now we have 35 down, okay, and then you have 40,000 in reinstatement. That means that's what they fell behind, and
Mm-hmm.
then you got realtor
Yep.
costs and carrying costs. Okay, so maybe we're
Yep.
at 55, right? So you're looking like, oh man, like we're gonna be negative net,
Yeah.
whatever it is, 15 to $20,000. So you can
Yep.
see why a lot of people won't touch that. But so then that was us. We're like, we ain't touching that, right? Because we want to start cash flowing right away.
Yep.
Well, because of our attorney partner, we actually learned, man, don't these are actually really great deals if you're patient. Plus, we're
Mm-hmm.
not out in our cash, right? We got hedge fund money that comes in, and we pay them 80% interest, right? So that would basically be the reason why. Maybe they have a high reinstatement, especially after COVID. Before COVID, there wasn't high reinstatements, but after COVID, because they
Right.
were doing so many forbearances, you could not for in
Yeah.
here. I remember 2020. It was 2020. Um, it was March 2020. all the way to August 2021, there was no auctions. So you can
Right.
see how much people was not. They weren't paying. They were not paying.
Yeah.
They were like, we don't got to pay. There's no foreclosure. They weren't paying. So
Yeah.
it got really. So their reinstatements basically went up. So
Yeah.
yep.
So, why do you guys, I know some people who do take over properties subject to go the rent to own route, and some of them go the owner finance route. So I'm curious why you guys go the route that you do and why people go that other route if you know.
Okay. So if you look at it like as mortgage companies, right? Mortgage companies don't own the property; they own the note,
Yep.
right? So they don't have any liability with the properties or maintaining. And by the way, when we sell this thing owner finance, we don't take calls from the owner finance buyer like landlords do, right? This is their
Right.
property. We gave them the deed, by the
Yep.
way. All we're doing is just creating paper, just
Yep.
like mortgage companies do, right? Mortgage companies say, "Hey, I'll give you this loan at 4% interest rate." They're making 4% interest money. Same exact thing what we're doing. So we don't own the property or any of that stuff, right? So I think we're on track. I think we have about don't quote me on this 14, 15 owner finance notes.
Yeah.
And none of these we take any calls or anything, right? We sell them as is. Sometimes we put in a little bit of work before we sell them. And we create paper and collect interest. Okay, so now I'll tell you where rentals are good is um, you have equity, right? So maybe if you bought it at 100 over time, it goes up. You actually get to capture that equity,
Yeah.
um, and you get cash flow that way as well. Right? You actually get the appreciation, right? Because when we sell owner finance, we don't
Yeah.
get that appreciation, but we do get what's called arbitrage. So we actually do already have. Let's say that when we took the property, the difference between 70,000 to if they put 10,000 is 100,000, we have $30,000 in
Yep.
equity. Um, the underlying note gets paid down faster, so it does. Our equity actually does increase, right?
Right.
Um, but rentals, you actually capture appreciation. So it really
Yeah.
depends on what's the goal, right? But
Yeah.
um, the problem with I think with rentals is if the HVAC system goes out,
Yeah.
here in Texas, they're like $6,000. That is your yearly cash flow. That is all the cash flow.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, right. So versus this, like we're making cash flow no matter what, as long as they
Yep.
pay.
Yep.
So we don't have to worry about anything in repairs or any of that stuff, right? So
Yeah.
there's no management in it really.
Right.
So that's the reason
They
why we
own it.
prefer going. Exactly,
Yeah, they're the owner.
exactly.
Yep. Gotcha.
Yep.
Um, and then uh, talk a little bit more about the hard to find people. I know you said you use a private investigator, but at that point, you know, what are your steps after you get that information back from the private investigator?
Yeah. So private investigators. So what we used to do at first is send pre foreclosure because our other data, our bulk listing, we send those to like um, Clear Skip. I love Clear Skip because they're for bulk guys. Clear Skip is really good and need to skip. And we used to do that with pre foreclosure, but we changed that because we were like, no, wait a sec. These are our best deals. Why send it to these bulk ones when our private investigator is very likely to get accurate information? So what happens is once we get that information, our caller will blow through all those numbers. If for some
Yep.
reason maybe the person died, call the relatives, maybe still we can't find anybody. Once we're in that situation, that's where I love those ones, right? Because
Yeah.
I already know a lot of people after they get it skipped the first time, they already quit. They left, right? They were on to the next lead,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So
I'll
and
admit that can be us. We skipped twice, but that's kind of us at that point. We're on. Like we're on to the
right,
next.
right,
Yeah.
right. And no, well, twice is better than once, right? Because once is
Yep.
like, but twice is good, right? Because now you're going to a second source.
Yep.
Um, and so this is what really deep prospecting. So once we get the information, we cannot find anybody. We have our private investigator. She will do a deep dive. What's called a deep dive. and she will
Okay.
pull even more information. I mean,
Okay.
she can even go all the way down to a genealogy test if needed, right? She can find anybody.
Okay.
But also I get involved, right? Because especially when somebody passed away, I already know a lot of individuals haven't found them. Now I know a couple guys here in San Antonio that they know what they're doing. They have a
Yeah.
process just like us, maybe even better. They know how to find people,
Yeah.
and they have private investigators. So if we can't find them, what I do is I get involved because she'll look at obituaries and we'll start connecting the dots. We'll say the obit says this guy passed away. Here's all the children. So now we know exactly who the children are, and then we'll
Yeah.
start looking at, okay, do any of these children live in town?
Hmm.
So we start collecting that information. Like maybe we couldn't get any of their phone numbers, right? Maybe we go back
Sure.
and look for phone numbers. No good phone numbers, but guess what? We know where they live.
Yeah.
Okay. So then from there, because we already know this is probably a good. It's a good deal, right? So we're
Yeah.
gonna go door knock. If we can't get a hold of anybody, we're going to door knock.
Yep.
Um,
And you
you
already
know,
know at this point because of your process that there's equity in there, that there's not some judgments that are going to screw it up. So it's a good use of your
exactly,
time to go knock the
exactly,
door. Okay.
exactly. Because we have our admin. She does title runs on any of our property that lands into our CRM. So we already
Okay.
know, is there liens, judgments, uh, affidavit and memos. We know all of that, right?
Oh, you're
Because
checking
we don't
memos so you know if someone else has already got a contract. Okay, so you're saving yourself time there.
every
Okay.
time.
Yep.
A month or less than a couple of weeks back, we found a property. It was the affidavit memo was filed like a month and a half ago. We were like, "Yep, nope, we ain't going after that."
Yep.
Now there's time we actually got deals from affidavit memos. Maybe it was expired, it was an older one, or calling investors like, "Hey, what's going on?" and this, and they're like, "Yeah, well, they just stopped working with us." And so maybe we'll actually partner up, right? There's those times that works. But yeah, we
Yeah.
already know what we're getting ourselves into before we go and spend. Before I get in the car, right? Because my brother's in Houston, so
Okay.
before I get in my car, I
Yep.
want to know what's going on,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Before
Yeah.
we used to go door knocking on doors. No, no, no. So
Yep.
we know now. We know which ones we go to. Also, one key thing is we even know if it's still up for auction or not. Because remember, I was telling you about the attorney firm that represents the bank. Okay, so you could
Yep.
actually call them and say, "Hey, I'm calling about this property. I wanted to see if it's still up for auction October 4th." And
Hmm.
a lot of them will tell you if it's still up or not. Now they can't release any information, but they'll say, "Yeah, this one is still up." Bingo. Or they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh no, this one's no longer up." Oh, we ain't going to that, right? Because we used to
Right.
do, otherwise we'll want just to find out, just for them to tell us it's not
Yeah, that
longer up.
it's already sold or whatever. They paid it off or yeah. Yeah.
I just drove 45 minutes there and back just for them to tell
Yeah.
me. So I
Or
don't want
maybe
to,
multiple times, right? Yeah.
right? Or even multiple times, right? Maybe they're at freaking work. So I'm like, let me go back at night, right? So it's for them to tell me that. So I'm like, I
Yeah.
used to hate. So I'm like, how can we eliminate that?
Yeah.
So that really helped our process, right? Number one is we call the trustee, is it still up? And then we say, look at the title work, and we say, yeah, this is a good one. Deep dive, private investigator looks deeper to it. I get involved. I'll tell you this, over the years, I got really good at finding people.
Yeah.
Not because the information is hard to find, but it's because over time I built skills to pay attention to the small. I'm telling you, it'd be the smallest things that can
Uh-huh.
connect the big dots, right?
Hmm.
Because you may look at a person, oh, they don't have the same last name. That doesn't mean anything,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I look at what is their original name. Oh, their original name was this person. Oh,
Ah.
so that means they got married to somebody
Yep.
different. This is still the daughter of this heir
Yep.
or of this person,
Yep.
right? Um, I know where to find the Facebooks. I mean, so I even get involved at that point. I even trained our admin to help out, look, and on top of that, we have a private investigator. Now we have three individuals looking for
Yep.
them, and we find somebody.
Yep.
There's only a few times where we just can't find anybody, and they're like, right now we got one where the person died. And there's only one person. There's some people out there they don't have any family, no
Yeah.
family,
Right.
right? And at that point, there's just not really much you can do. It's just
It
gonna
just goes to auction
uh,
and yeah.
yeah, it goes to auction or there's a term, I forget what it's called, but where the person died, they have no family members. I forget what it's called. It'll probably come later.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's basically our
Yeah.
process there.
Yeah. Pretty in depth, but obviously works out well for you guys.
Yeah, it
Uh,
does, man. Systems and processes. If you're getting started, don't even worry about a system and process, right? Because you have to
sure.
get out there first
Yep.
and figure it out, right? You
Yep.
got to get out there first and figure it out because, if I go back real quick, I'm telling you, have the knowledge paralysis. A lot of people have that, and it holds you back. Before you
Yep.
know it, time passes, things change. So it's better to. It is better. I'm a firm believer. I don't believe in just jumping in first,
Yep.
right? But I don't believe waiting last. I think you got to do a little bit and then go out there and test it. Come back, right? Review the
Yeah.
results, shifts, go back. There's a good book out there called The Startup, I think is what it's called. And it talks about the loop process. I think it's called The Startup.
Okay.
Um, Good book. So it talks about that, or and it talks about the lean process and stuff. So yeah. So I would say get out there, and eventually what happens is you'll start building your own systems and process. You could actually learn
Yep.
from other people, take from them, implement, make changes, and things like that.
Yeah. So a big part of this, you got to find the people, right? But a big part of it is like obviously you mentioned your approach and sales, and you shared a little bit earlier about how your approach is different and coming in as more of a trusted advisor than, just your typical salesperson. Can
Yep.
you share just more about your sales process, your sales and negotiation process and how that's evolved over the years and how yours is different than a lot of
Yeah.
investors out there?
Yeah. Absolutely. So if there's one skill, okay, in this business, it's sales and negotiation. Okay,
Yep.
you got to have marketing too, right? You guys, it really this business, guys, is just sales and marketing. That's really what
Yep.
it comes out to.
Yeah.
If you really simplify it, your marketing, you get properties, but then you got to close them.
Yeah.
So when I graduated, I got network marketing. I started doing all this stuff, and that's when I started learning sales, right?
Hmm.
And as time went by, I started figuring out. I was like, because remember, I wanted to build wealth, and I started looking at wealthy people, and I was like, what are some of the skills? If you look at them, some of the wealthiest people, they all say the same exact thing: sales and negotiation. Sales and
Yep.
negotiation. Mark
Yeah.
Cuban talks about it. Elon Musk, he don't talk about it, but he's a negotiator, right? He
Yeah.
understands
Yeah.
psychology, and that's really what it is. Sales is really psychology. It's understanding um, psychology, how the brain works, decision making, neuroscience, and it's understanding people. It's a people
Mhm.
business, right? So
Yep.
if you really understand people, you have an advantage, right?
Hmm.
So I became a fanatic in sales, and I just like that's my thing. I study my ass off to learn it. So
Yep.
sales, when it comes to sales, what a lot of investors do is I see this a lot. They get on the phone or they go to the property. They say, "Hey, so what do you want to sell this for?" Right? That's the first thing they ask. What do you want to sell this for? All right, well, I'll offer you this, and that's it. That's it,
Yeah.
right?
Take it or leave it. Yeah.
Take it or leave it. My mentor is like that. Now he got really good deals. He got really good deal, but he was a my first mentor. He's a straight shooter.
Mm.
He didn't care. He was like, "You take it or leave it." He walked out on so many people.
Yeah.
So, but I know a lot of people just give pricing and that's it, right? But that's the worst thing that you can do
Yeah.
because it's number one is really hardly ever about price, right? But if you just
Yeah.
come in and just give out price, good luck, right? You're the only way you're gonna get a deal is if their property is going to auction today or something, right? Like they don't got any other
Yeah.
people, they don't got any other option, whatever. But if you really want to get good with sales, there's a process out there.
Hmm.
Okay, and so the way our process lines up is and we did a lot of sales training. John Martinez was a really good sales trainer. Mike, I know you do a lot of sales. You're in a lot of sales programs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
um, so what we do is when we first get on the phone, we is setting expectations, right?
Hmm.
Hey,
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the call. Process is very simple. Just want to take 17 minutes out of your time, learn a little bit more about the property. I'm not even sure if we're the right buyer for you.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, I wouldn't say that, right? Like, that's like, what are they going to?
Best thing
No,
you
no,
can
no.
say.
That's the thing to say, right? Because nobody's saying that, and then two, they're like, whoa, because you gotta catch people off guard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's always the most important. If you catch people off guard, they're going to listen. And if you do it
Mm-hmm.
the earlier you do it, the better. So I
Yeah.
say, hey, look, I'm not sure for the best fit, right? I don't know if this is going to be a property we're going to buy. So I want to make sure this property qualifies what we're looking for. They're like
Yeah.
qualified. Okay, so there's some psychology in
Like
that,
that.
right? Because now what happens when there's scarcity? Well, people want what they can't have, right? So if there's only
Yeah.
two Bugattis out there, right? Well, they're gonna freaking sell the shit out of that. Billions of dollars. Somebody's gonna freaking buy it because there's only two of them. So we say,
Yep.
hey, I'm not sure if we're gonna buy this property to see if it qualifies. After that 17 minutes, I'll let you know if this is a good fit, and if so, we'll chat about the next steps and what that looks like. Is that
Mm-hmm.
okay? Right? That's what we do. Or with that, and we don't. Mike knows this really well. We don't do the yes question. We transition to the no question. We say, hey, would that
Yeah.
be a bad idea? um, so Chris Voss talks about that, guys. You don't ever want to ask a question that force somebody to say yes, right? Especially when you're in sales negotiation. What I mean is, um, hey, can you talk? First thing that's going through that person's mind is like, what is this about? Like, oh shit, like what is this? They're thinking the worst thing versus, hey, would it
Yeah.
destroy your schedule if you take 5 minutes out of your day to chat with me? Oh no, right? Like, no, I won't destroy my schedule. No, it won't kill my schedule. No, right? People want the
Yeah.
freedom. No, they want
Mm-hmm.
to be tied down and say yes, right? So
Yep.
then we start chatting about the property. Now we don't really build rapport in the sense of like, oh, you're from Dallas, I'm from Dallas too, right? Like we don't really do that. The way
Yeah.
we establish rapport is through connection.
Mm-hmm.
So we say, sounds like you got this pro. It sounds like you're selling this property for a reason, right? What's the story behind
Mm.
this? I always ask that question. Now I'm telling you guys, when you say what's the story behind this? Like, what's the reason you're selling this? I probably just try that. Watch how the seller just opens up. It's something about the word. I don't know if it's the word story or
Yeah.
whatever it is, but that
Humans love
shit. So,
stories. Makes them pays attention. Pay attention.
right. So what happens is they start rambling, telling everything. Well, if you guys know, the more somebody talks, right, they actually release what's called endorphins. So then endorphins basically it's like excitement, right? So and they're gonna remember that feeling. They get a good feeling. They're talking, and they're telling you why they're selling the story and this and that. And
Mm-hmm.
so now you got them talking, right? Because we want to know motive. Next, that once we're after the condition, we want to know motivation. What's the reason they're selling?
Yep.
The investors out there are just giving out the price and shit. They don't even know why they're selling,
Yeah. Or if they're
right?
selling for real.
Or
Like if
if
they're
they're
really
selling,
selling. Yeah.
right? Thank you, right? So after that motivation, we figure out why. Just like Mike said, we figure out deal killers. We want to know deal killers. Deal killers
Yep.
means who, number one, who's all the decision makers?
Yep.
Okay. Who's the influencers? You'd be surprised. You talk to you talk to a homeowner. She has a best friend that's a realtor. I know you guys ran into that situation. That's a deal killer, influencer, right?
Yep.
Because that realtor maybe say, well, your property's worth this. Well, you don't need to sell it this way, or you don't need to do this, and that is a deal killer. So you got to find out, or you got to figure out what is the fears. Why won't they move forward, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't do this. So what happens is you get to the sale process, you make an offer, and they're like, yeah, okay, I'll think about it, or yeah, okay, well, call me back tomorrow, or they ain't even answering the phone.
Yep.
So this is the most important thing that I'm saying in sales, and especially with this process. If there's two things that you can figure out, if you can just figure out the motivation and the deal killers, you are you're in TikTok shape.
Yep.
Because I used to go to sleep not knowing why they wouldn't move forward. I'd be like, I don't understand why they move forward. I just made them an offer that they wanted. Like, why aren't they
Yep.
moving forward? And that used to bother me, eat me up. So now I figure out I would say about 80 to 90% of my call, I know why they're not moving forward.
Yep.
And at least I know that, and as long as I know why they're not moving forward, I'm okay with that. And a lot of times
Yeah.
there's things that maybe you just can't do anything with, right? So I'll say, hey, what's the reason you don't list this thing with a realtor? That's a deal killer. Oh, I've actually been thinking about it. I actually got a best friend and they're actually going to be coming by tomorrow and, we're chatting and, well, now you have to ask yourself, right? Now you're in trouble. But if you don't figure that out, you won't even
Yeah.
know that there's a best friend that's coming by tomorrow. So
Yep.
now I know that. I said, oh, okay, got it, excellent. So it sounds like you've already made that decision to go and list a property with your agent. Yeah, yeah, you're already almost done. So, but I'll go down one more. I'll say, hey, let me ask some. The only reason somebody even considers selling for cash is because they want to sell the property as is condition. They don't want to have to worry about putting in repairs. They want to be able to sell on their terms. They want to be able to sell and be flexible. They don't want a bunch of people running in, and they don't want to have to, lose some privacy to put it on the market and have everybody. But the more I'm talking to you, the more I'm chatting with you, it sounds like none of those things are important to you.
Yeah.
Whatever the answer to that question is going to tell you. If they say, yeah, no, none of that's important, I'm not wasting no more time because I'm not here to convince, right? There's no point of convincing.
Yep.
If none of those things are important to them, they maybe don't have a lot of motivation, right? And maybe it does make sense to go list the property. But if they say,
Yep.
well, yeah, like I do want to list it as is, I don't want to put any repairs, or yeah, I don't want to pay any closing costs or realtor fees, and now you have an opportunity. Hey,
Yeah.
really, what's the reason you say that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of our process. We get farther down, and before we make an offer, this is another important thing. We get a commitment.
Yeah.
We say, hey, if everything, if the number sounds good to you, if everything works out, if your husband's on board, what would be the reason you wouldn't be moving forward today? Right? Because don't
Mm.
ever give out an offer before sealing that up, right? Because maybe we
Yep.
went through the deal, maybe there's some hidden ones. So this question kind
Yeah.
of it's like a secondary protection. So I say, hey, what would be the reason you wouldn't move forward today if you got the price you want or whatever the case is? Oh well, I got to chat with our CPA. I had somebody say that 2 months ago. I got to chat with my CPA. That's a deal killer,
Yeah.
right? CPA is a deal killer.
We
Accountant,
use a we use a very similar one. Like, Bryson, let's pretend I make you an offer and you like what I have to say. What
right?
happens next? Right? And then I'm
Right.
like,
See,
well, I got to talk to my accountant. Like,
yeah,
oh, okay. Like, that never came up until this point. Like,
exactly. And what I love most with that one word that you just said, right? Hey, let's pretend for a second. Because now it's putting them in that hey, let's imagine for a second. Hey, let's pretend for a second that everything works. Now you're casting that future. Everything works good. You get what you want, this and that. Or I even say like, hey, let's say you get the offer. Everybody's on board. You're ready to go. You're ready to sign the paperwork. You sign the paperwork. You wake up in the morning. What's the first thing that's
mm,
going through your head?
that's
Right?
a good one.
Because the thing is that they may be ready today and stuff, but what happens is a lot of times, guys, they go through tomorrow and they start having these. Think about it.
Mm.
I always say, look at the next time you go and buy something, and if it's a big buying decision, look at how you make decisions because it'll tell you everything. There's three types of way people make decisions, right? So some of people are just action takers. So you have assertive, you have analysts, right, and then you have people that are basically like heart, right? They want to feel good in relationship building.
Yep.
So some people may wake up and start having that self doubt, like, man, did I really get the right price, or man, did I do this? So you'll be surprised on what they'll say at that time, like, yeah, man, man, like I'm really having a hard time letting go of this property. Like I don't want to sell it. And now that's a deal killer. So but guess
Yep.
what? Instead of after the contract, right, they say they call you and say, I don't want to move forward anymore. Because the deal
Yeah.
is the easy part is getting the contract. A lot of times the deal falls apart after the contract.
Gotcha.
So our goal is to try and figure out everything that will we try to figure out what are the things that's going to kill it later. So by asking
Yep.
that question, like, man, they're going to say I have a hard time. Well, now we know that, so now we're going to address that. We're going to go back
Yeah.
and address that, right? Some things you can't address, right? And that's
Sure.
okay. But for the things that you can, it's better to address it up front, and
Yeah.
that's what we do.
Yeah, I think one thing that I really want to highlight what you said way in the beginning there is how a lot of people think rapport is you like the Giants, I like the Giants,
Right.
we're from the same place, and it builds a little, right?
Exactly.
But
Yep.
really,
Yep.
rapport is built by people talking and that chemical releasing in their brain and them feeling good. I mean, I had a guy earlier, I was on the phone doing some training with my team, so I was having them shadow me. I probably said 20 words the whole call, and the end of the call, and he goes, "Man, you're like all these guys call me all the time. You're just a cool guy." And there was no deal to be had. It was a 5-minute call. I disqualified him. He's like,
Right.
"You're just a cool guy. I don't know why." And I'm like, "Because I'm not a cool guy. You're a cool guy. You
Right.
like
Right.
talking about you."
Right,
um,
exactly. They don't even know why. Like people don't even know why, right? They're like, man, like that's why
yeah,
even when I meet people, like, a lot of times I don't do any of the. I don't really do a lot of the talk. I ask a lot of questions to them. I'll say, okay, well, what do you do? This and that and that. What happens a lot of times, I walk out of conversation knowing more about that person, maybe more than they do me, and that's
yep,
just because I'm a genuine curious person, right?
yep,
Um, so my wife says like everybody always likes you and all this stuff, and it wasn't until I figured out the sales stuff that one of those things was I figured out that that's what I do. Right? I get people to talk. I don't
yep,
ever really talk about myself. I get people to talk about themselves
yep,
because if you get people to talk about themselves, that is influence, right?
yep,
So yeah, so that's I think that's I think that's a big thing is
yeah,
building rapport through letting them talk and also having that empathy or tactical empathy, like hey, sounds like it's been a stressful situation, and you feel like you're alone and you've been dealing with this all by yourself, right? They're like,
yep,
yeah, man, like that's yeah, like exactly, that's right. You're like, oh my gosh, like thank you for understanding it,
yeah,
right? It's like just by saying that, right? Really understanding the situation and reading between the lines.
yep. And a funny story actually around the kind of building that rapport. A friend of mine, great salesman, sells life insurance, probably one of the top guys in New York City. Um, he did an experiment one night he told me about. He goes to a party and he said, "I'm not going to say anything about myself the whole time I'm here. I'm only going to ask
Right,
questions to other people."
right.
He said by the end of the party, two people came up to him and said, "You're the most interesting person I've met all year." He's
See,
like, I'm not interesting. You think yourself is interesting, right? He didn't say
right,
that to them, obviously, but he just wanted to try it, right? And that's what it is. And he didn't share any commonalities with them. He just said,
exactly.
just let them talk the whole time.
Exactly. Just let them talk. There's a good quote now. I don't remember. It's something about interest. Um, to to be interesting, you got to be interest. Or to
Interested, interest. To be
interested, or
interesting, you
it's
got to be
something like
interested, right? Yeah.
right. Exactly. There you go. Thank you. Right. To be interesting, you got to be interested.
Yep.
That is. I think I said that right. That's an excellent quote because that exactly what your friend did an experiment. I'm telling you, just go
Yep.
out, just go out and experiment and say, instead of me talking about myself, let me go and be curious about the other person. Let me get them to
Yep.
talk, and you'll be
Yeah.
surprised, right? Like, so like being on the podcast, what I'm saying, like you're asking me questions, like I'm excited, I'm feel good, right? Because I'm talking and
Yeah.
sharing and right.
Yep.
So that same thing. So that's and I've always naturally been like that. I just been doing it. I never knew why.
Hmm.
Um, I was just, I'm easy to talk to, and people just, gravitate. And as I started learning like influence psychology, and that I was able to put the two together. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
So we're almost out of time here, but there's always two questions that I like to ask
let's
at
go.
the end of every
Let's
show, Bryson. So first one's kind of fun. It's what's the craziest or most uncomfortable situation you've ever experienced with the seller?
Well, one of them was the druggie, right? Because all the friends were in there, and one of the friends went off for me. I had no idea why, right? It was freaking random until I figured out that she was on drugs.
Yeah,
But there was another, and this was an embarrassing one. I'll say this. This happened like 5 months ago. We had a property, excellent property. I mean, remodeled inside and everything. and it was up for auction. Now, somewhere in the process, we done dropped the ball because we had our auction dates mixed up, and the seller didn't even know, right? So the seller was calling the bank. It was like, okay, we were working the deal. We got the deal, got a contract signed. We went through all this work, and it was going to be a sub two. It was gonna be like 1,200 cash flow. Oh my, yeah, 1,200 cash flow or something. It was gonna be crazy. Well, we we get, I think it was like days before, and we even had the seller call the bank and everything's lady was on the phone, was like, yeah, well, we can't do anything here or this and that, but she didn't even know this
Yeah.
thing already went to auction the month
Oh,
before. It went to auction the month before, and somewhere we dropped the ball. I do not know how, or actually I do know how, actually. um uh the dates got mixed up whenever it got uploaded, and I think we also had the wrong notice of foreclosure in there. So we were thinking it was going to be this month, but in reality, it went to auction the last month, and the seller didn't
ooh,
even know that. And I'm like,
yeah,
how do you not even know that, right? Like, how do you not know your property was up for auction last month? Being a, which is um, which is mind blowing, right? But right, so we went through all this work, and the attorney was
oh,
like, so we had to tell the attorney part too, like, hey man, and it's a lot of paperwork when you do these sub twos and stuff, man. And they did all the
yeah,
paperwork in the term, and we were excited because it was gonna be a good deal. And we said, hey, this property already went to auction, and yeah, man. So that was an embarrassing moment, more probably internally than anything, um, because we put a lot of effort and resource and time and stuff like that. We didn't
yeah,
lose any money, right? But I think it was more of an internal embarrassment.
sure. Yeah, that's a tough one. Um, so
I will say this.
second, oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Um, there was the 2 years. It was when I first got started in this industry. There was this one seller. He's a pretty savvy guy. He owned a bunch of properties and stuff. And at the time, I was just beginning in the sales. I wasn't all heavy into it and stuff. So I get on the phone and started asking these questions. And there was a question I can't remember, but it was a good question. But he just went left. He was like, "Look, I don't need you trying to use your little tricks, right? Or and trying to ask these questions and figure out this and none of that." And he was like, I've been in the game. If you want to buy this property, come by, check it out, but don't waste your time, this and that." I mean, he went off on me, right?
Yeah,
And that there was some internal pain that happened there, right?
sure. Yeah, yeah,
Um, and it said it hurt me for a couple of days, right? Because I was like, man, like
yeah.
where the fuck did I go wrong? Like what it is,
Where'd you go wrong?
and
Yeah,
yeah, I was feeling bad within myself. So I was like, shit, man, like. So that was another turning point to where I'm like, yeah, I'm about to go all in on this sales and negotiation. I'm about to
yeah.
understand this. That was a turning point, right? But yeah, that call didn't go too well. That was that was
Well,
a call where he called
yeah,
me out, man. It
the
was
most painful
very.
lessons are the ones you learn the most, or the ones you lose the most money. You learn the
Man,
most, right?
you need those. I remember exactly. I remember everything. I remember I was at all that, man. It
Yep.
was.
Yeah, exactly. For
I mean,
sure.
he just literally just
Boom.
just spanked me. It was bad. Yeah. So that was a funny
So,
one.
final question. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice when you were looking for your first deal, knowing what you know now, what would you say to yourself?
Start soon, right? Start sooner.
Hmm.
I think it took too long, right? Like I said, it was about a year, maybe a couple months until we actually really started getting out in the field.
Mm.
Uh, so we burnt a year, right? So that's a big key, but also, um, networking right away, because I know there was other individuals out there that we could have, partnered or found and helped us out throughout the process and things like that. So I would say really those two things. But I always go back to the announced fraud. I think that's so
Yeah.
important because I know a lot of people myself. They have really good ideas and stuff. They just can't get over that hump. So
Yep.
that was one thing I always look back. I'm like, shit, man, we should have got started a year earlier.
Yeah.
I look right. So now I take that and I use that as a lesson to even ourselves. But that was our big. I think to me that was a. If I can go back to our first deal and things like that, it would be that. But if it was our first deal, it would be um, knowing the situation because we walked
Hmm.
into a drug house. I
Sure.
don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't. I didn't even see there was needles and all that stuff, right? Because
Oof.
I'm so excited about the deal,
Right. His first
right?
deal. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, and that's another thing. That's another thing. Don't I would try and avoid getting excited once you get a contract signed, right? Especially first one because and now look, it's an achievement that you got the contract signed.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say it is because if shit goes sour, it's gonna if you're extremely happy, like, oh man, like I'm gonna count on this deal. And by the way, this is another lesson that ties in. Don't count on the money until it
So
actually
you,
hits your bank account.
yeah. Yeah. It's a
Because
sales 101 and the check clears. Right.
we found that out fast, right? You count
Yeah.
on that money, you start planning on it, and it doesn't come in, you're in trouble.
Yep.
That's a big lesson. I'll tell you that now.
Yep.
So be excited, but lower the expectation because, like I said, there's a lot of times deals fall apart. Maybe liens, judgments, things you just didn't know, especially you start out. And if it falls apart, if you're overly excited or positive, then it could destroy you, right?
Yeah.
So I would say those things, man. Those would be my if I can go back and change.
Yep. Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on today. If people want to reach out to you or send you deals or they just have questions, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, so follow me on Instagram, Real Estate with Bryson, Bryson. Again, Real Estate with Bryson. That's on IG. Facebook, you can just type my name in, Bryson Whitley. You'll see me on there. TikTok, Real Estate with Bryson as well. And LinkedIn, Bryson Whitley. So yeah, Real Estate with Bryson on IG and TikTok, and then Bryson Whitley on Facebook and LinkedIn.
Cool. And for everyone watching live, guys, we'll put that in the comments, or if you're listening on the podcast, we'll put that in the podcast notes so you can reach out to Bryson. Um, Thanks again for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. Shared a lot of great stuff with people. And yeah, if anyone, if you guys like this episode, like I said, we do this weekly except next week because I'm going to be traveling. But make sure to like, subscribe, share it with other people. We're trying to get some really good content on here. So thanks everyone for tuning in.
Thank you, Mike. Man, I appreciate it, man. Hey, you're freaking excellent at this, by the way. So I just want to throw that out there. So I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.